Welcome back to another episode of Fuzzy Memories from the Road. This is a special episode that we're dedicating to some of the crew members that were crazy enough to choose to join the show.
Mr. Brian Donnell, who was with us for several episodes, in many cases, in several countries. And we're going to talk about some of those things. Brian, how you been?
Great. It's really nice to connect with you guys. I haven't talked to you in a long time, but I was just telling Brandy earlier that it was really only like 3 months of my life, but it was like some of like the 3 most memorable months in my life, in a long time. I remember those like in real detail, as opposed to a lot of other times I don't remember at all.
Micah Sampson.
Yay!
Applause. So Micah, I don't remember like what your official title was. Were you a field producer, an associate producer?
I got called a bunch of different things, and those are definitely the least offensive of all of them. But I think I fell somewhere in between AP, associate producer and story producer.
Okay.
Brian, where were you before you took the gig to film the Ghost Hunters International show? What were you doing prior to that?
I had just gotten out of grad school, and I was just trying to kind of make my way and just trying to get whatever I could. I was doing, and the way I got into the show was I was doing I think it was the first show that Morgan Spurlock did, 30 Days. And the producers on it were people who had produced the first half. I can't remember his name anymore. Produced the first half of the first season of GHI. And they called me. And they were like, hey, we need a DP for this. And because I guess Dave Hobbs was the DP and he went up to
producing.
Yeah, producing. And so they were like, and you're going to have to get, you'd have to go to like, Dracula's castle and all over the world and stuff. Oh, I was like, hell yeah, sign me up for that. That sounds amazing.
So we've had this thing, and you may or may not remember, every location we went to, we were given the Ghost Hunters International black folder that had like Wikipedia articles printed inside of them.
It was my job to carry those two. I was the mule. I'd smuggle those in the country.
It's a high priority task.
You haven't seen these in a very long time, but I actually have.
Oh man.
Some of them.
Yeah.
Look at that. You joined us in season 2, and I think it was for the Rothland Island, Ireland episodes.
That was my first, and by the way, my first time traveling outside the country was, really? And this was my first show. I'd never done any other work before, and they told me I can go with you guys and travel the world, and I was like, do I get my own hotel room? And they're like, yeah. It's like, what am I, a rock star? and then my first day. Or the first that y'all remember the ferry ride and all that stuff, and everybody like crossing themselves because they all thought we were going to capsize on getting there. And all I could think was like, oh man, how cool. I'm not going to die in Beaumont. Because it was like, that was a little touch and go,
Yeah.
Well, and I remember you guys were lovely to me when I first got there. I remember Snapper, Steve Robinson. I was so green. Do y'all remember the rumor was that I was the boss's son? Because there's no somebody this ignorant out here. And like y'all swore, you believed it. You're like, there's no way this kid is here and not like somebody's son.
Yeah, you were the mole. You were supposed to be like the spy for production.
Yeah, exactly. And Steve Robinson found out real quick because everyone was shouting into their lapels or like into their shirts, and I was like, what's everybody shouting at? And then like Steve shoved a walkie in my chest and he was like, always stay on walkie. And I just looked at him and I was like, I get a walkie-talkie? I was so honored. I had no idea. So yeah, it was a good intro.
Did you have any interest? I mean, as someone who was a former camera operator myself, like you go where the gig is, you know, obviously, but some
Mhm.
things are a little more exciting to go do than others. But did
Mhm.
you personally have any interest in paranormal stuff at all before this?
I've always been interested in that stuff, and that was one of the reasons why I was into it. I remember when I was a kid, my parents had this book. My dad had bought this book at a thrift store that was like monster movies, and it had like real, like some pretty gory looking photos, and but ghosts and monsters and things from movies. And I was just fascinated with that book when I was like 4 or 5, and then it just freaked the shit out of me. Can I swear on this or not?
Yeah, you
Yeah, it's fun.
Freaked the crap out of me, and so they had to like hide it in the top of their closet or whatever. But like I've always been, and like always been like not necessarily like, oh, I'm a true believer, but just fascinated. Like I feel like it's definitely possible there could be something, and this was like a great opportunity to go out and see it for myself.
Micah, what about we kind of didn't mention this at all, but like why? I mean, I know this was kind of like your first show, but like, did you have any feeling one way or another about it being a paranormal show, about it being a ghost show? Did you have any previous paranormal experiences like coming to this, or I know
No.
it's a job, but
Yeah, no. I really was just well, I will say this. Actually, I used to watch you guys in college, and and at the time, GH was like one of the very first unscripted shows on,
Mhm.
and it was quite novel and quite magnetic. You'd never seen anything like it. So I had that somewhat experience, but most of it I found just really exciting that you guys just delved into history because I love history, and I was almost a history major in college, which would have done about as good as my communications degree. But um, I thought we were like, I mean, maybe I'm over romanticizing it, but we give these old dockets, and like we were in a new country. I mean, we were on our little Indiana Jones adventure every week, and you didn't know what you were going to find or what you were going to experience, and who the people you were going to be with. Um, so no, I had no background in paranormal. I had no background that would warrant me being out there, other than they said this guy looks like he can stick around for a minute. That truly was. I don't know what else would have lended itself to it.
collectively, us three, we did 8 locations together. I think it panned out to be maybe 5 episodes or something. I'm not quite sure.
Hmm.
The very first one I know that I did with you was Salisbury Hall in England.
Hmm.
And then we went to Bottle Within Castle. And then we jumped to South Africa.
Yeah, right.
And so South Africa, we did kind of in the city in Cape Town, right?
Right.
And then
Right.
we did the Nottingham Road Hotel
Yeah.
location, which is
Yeah.
where we did what they would call outings, group outings that were filmed.
Hmm.
And this outing was supposed to be a beautiful short hike into the wilderness of the Drakensberg mountain range.
Hmm.
And we have rightly so dubbed this hike the Nightmare Hike.
Mhm.
And I
Right,
just
because it was
remember
supposedly to the
you.
nightmare caves, but the hike itself was the nightmare.
Yes,
Yeah.
I remember you with your camera, and you always scared me because you would walk backwards all the time.
Mm.
Walking backwards towards a cliff, and we're trying to like walk and talk, as you're filming us, just being very, nonchalant, and I'm just like watching you, just terrified that we're going to be like calling home for you. And
Yeah, right. Like, oops, sorry. Yeah, he fell off a cliff.
That thing
Yeah.
kept us out all night. That ended up being a really long expedition that went nowhere. And then I remember walking back in the dark and trying to use camera lights and stuff just to find
That's
our way.
right. Oh, that was just such a waste of time. I mean, the thing that I remember the most out of it was like I don't know what it was on the ground, but it was like this. I just bought these new hiking boots and they didn't fit me very well. Like they were way too wide, so they just tended to wobble. And it was as if like the entire thing had been like a cornfield, and then they'd like cut it off, but like this. So it kind of felt like there were these like stalks that were like 6 inches high or something. And so you would just step on one and your feet would just want to like fall off. And it was like that for miles and miles. That was such a mess.
it was terrible. And Nancy Kwan, I remember Nancy Kwan, she stepped in mud and lost her shoe.
No, really?
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah, that was a big nothing
Yep.
for sure. Was there anything? There was nothing out there, right? You just went out
Nothing.
there and there was no
No.
response or
Yeah, the guide was supposed to tell us about why people have nightmares in this cave and everything, and then it ended up being like a sales pitch for some like body butter that he and his buddy were selling. And it was like, why are we out here? And they told us this was like the lookout point for like the teenagers, like they come and mess around out here. It's like wonderful. And then they left us because we didn't buy anything.
Oh my God. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, that's why we had to find our own way back because they took off.
I think you guys must have shielded us from that information so that we didn't feel like we just done all that for nothing.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So I think you did about 10 or 11 episodes with Dustin and myself before Dustin left. So I think the first episode that Dustin really wasn't a part of the show was when we went to Jamaica. And so it was like all the way up until Jamaica that all three of us worked together.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're like family out there for a while, for a long time, for like over a year and a half.
Yeah.
Or so.
Yeah, I covered a lot of ground. I mean, truly, I lived with you guys. I had like separation when I was finally not on it too. Like there was and y'all meant especially a lot to me because I'd never been with another, group of on-camera people, and I'd never been with a crew. Like as far as I knew, you guys that was my world. So it was truly like, it was special. It was awesome.
Well, there was one where we were in that dungeon, Dustin, I'm pretty sure, where I think Rob was on, there was like a 3-level thing, right? It was like there was like the main floor, which had like a, recreation of a rack or whatever. And then like down below was kind of a pit, and poor old Snapper was down in there with Rob. And then I think Barry was on the top floor, like a little, where like people could look down and see people getting tortured
Right.
or whatever. And then you were on my level, and I felt like I was like, look, you didn't want to like have light spill from your camera, so I had the camera up to my face, and I was like looking up at Barry because Barry was saying something, And then I felt your hand on my shoulder, Dustin, and I was like, oh, hold on a second. And then after Barry had kind of finished saying what he said, then I was like, okay, Dustin, what was it? And you were like 40 feet away on the other side of the room.
Yeah.
And so that was like my main ghosty experience on that whole show. I remember, and I did this every place we went, but I was really always amazed at how you guys could go out just in the dark, in the middle of the castle by yourselves, and just like not, and be fine with it. Because like I remember on breaks, like in Charlottesville in particular, I remember this, where like, we had this like one small break room with lights, and the lights everywhere else in the castle were off, but we'd all huddle there, and then I'd kind of start to go out into the castle by myself and just be like, okay, let me see how I feel going out in the dark. And there'd be like, you go out a little ways, like, oh, this is fine. And then and it usually happened right around the time where I couldn't hear anybody anymore, like hearing the chatter and stuff when people were drinking coffee, like right around the time where I couldn't hear anymore, like suddenly it was just like, oh fuck, like so scared in the dark. It was just like this primal thing, like I couldn't, like it was something that I could not master with my mind. Like I don't know if that means anything or if that's just like some kind of primal thing, but man, I never could get over it. Could never get over it. Freak the hell out, for sure.
Yeah, that's just a natural thing, I think, for sure. And indeed, my little trick is I always told people, because I was always fine, especially when we're together, we're filming. There's 3 or 4 of us, and out there together. But it was always, the worst part for me was always end of the night. It's like 3 or 4 in the morning. Oh, somebody left a cable up on the 3rd floor of the castle, and now you're gonna go get it by yourself. Like that's when it's like you say, you get out of earshot from everybody else, and it's like, oh, like what's going on, And your imagination starts going. And I would always sing little songs in my head to keep myself kind of a little juxtaposition. And the theme song from The Facts of Life, the old 80s TV show, that was what I would
opposite
do.
of haunting. Right?
Yeah, like nothing bad could happen to me during that. So I would just sing that in my head, go get what I needed, and then just get back out of there.
I've never felt any of that. Never.
Never. What? You just walked out?
Brandy is dead inside.
Are you dead inside, Brandy?
A little bit.
a little bit. Wow, that's a gift. I mean, I feel like Rob and Barry and would walk around. Andy would walk around and like not care. But okay, well, it's interesting to hear that you felt that way, Dustin.
Yeah. I just faked my bravery. That was it.
When I the first night, and again, I think this was the New Zealand one. So Brandy, again, I think you weren't on it, but it was the very first investigation I ever did. And Dustin, I don't know if you remember this, but like, so we had to do again, like, you know, during the investigation, had to look at you guys.
Mhm.
Always, you know, watch you guys, except for the times where you might tell me to go, you know, look around, or so we're like, if, hey, there's something over there, and I'd look around or whatever. But generally, I was on you guys. So then later, we'd have to be like, okay, that, you know, you're in a room. Then I'd have to go back in later with the infrared camera, just get shots of the room you could cut together the scene with, you know.
Mhm.
And I was the last person in the castle, and the castle was, you know, of course, completely dark, and no lights, no electricity on there in there at all. And I remember just having to be on my walkie the whole time, just like, oh, okay, guys, I'm going in, all right. Oh shit, oh god. And there was just like, in particular, there's this like really scary room. I feel like on the second floor or something that had like wax figures in it,
Mhm.
like creepy, like just. And I was like, oh shit, I'm about to have to go in there. Okay, guys, here I go. And they're like, oh, we're rooting for you. Go on, we're right here, whatever. And I went in and I walked in, and there was like this. Also, there's like levels of black drapes or something that you had to walk through. So literally, I
Yeah.
walked black draped into this room with all these wax figures, is the way I recall it. And I was like, here I go, and went in. And then Andy Lipson, the producer, like jumped out and went, blah! Like right after I went in there, and just scared the. Oh my god!
Yeah.
I probably, I mean, if I hadn't used the restroom right before, I probably would have peed myself. But
I think that was Larnac Castle, if I remember correctly.
is that what it's called,
Yeah,
Larnac?
I think it was
Yeah,
Larnac
right. Yeah,
Castle.
that sounds
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
That was a cool place.
But then, you know, the interesting thing is that that was actually the second experience that I had. It was kind of like, oh, okay, okay, great, we're all good. Like, all right, well, let me just finish up and I'll come in. Like that kind of got all the scares out of me.
Mhm.
But then there was this big spiral staircase going up the middle of the place, and one of the things that they had, you know, people had reported was that feeling that somebody was pulling you down the stairs or throwing you off the stairs or whatever. And I started walking up the stairs, and all of a sudden I felt like somebody was trying to drag me down the stairs. I just felt this like sucking feeling, or almost. And this is the only time this happened on the whole show or whatever, but I was like, I got down on my hands and knees and started crawling. And I wasn't even wigged out at that point either, because we'd just been through that other experience. And then I got to the top, and I just like totally feeling this sucking feeling coming from the staircase. So then I went up and like leaned back against the wall. And so, all right, so this was like a castle that had at one point been a castle, right, where then like I think the son had ended up having an affair with his father's wife, young wife or something, right? And then somebody had killed themselves. And then after that, it turned into like a hospital for like World War I patients or something. And then
I
after
remember there
that,
was
it turned in like a hospital for the criminally insane or something. And so I remember like there's a lot of different, like, so anyway, the place I was leaning up against the wall, there was like this corridor behind me that was like one of where like the criminally insane people, you know, stayed or whatever. And then like over there was like the place, the nursery, you know, where like, and I remember just kind of leaning up there, and all of a sudden I just felt like I heard like rattling over here, and like in the stuff coming from the nursery and all this stuff. I was like, oh my god. I just like basically like ran through the room, like kind of like each room, just like, okay, got this one, and like ran downstairs and got the hell out of there. So there's like no physical contact, but that was like the one time, that was the only other time besides the one in Pradiyama that just scared the shit out of me.
Sounds
really
like you
did.
had more personal experiences than I did on my entire time on the show.
Really?
Yeah. Okay, Micah, so did you ever experience anything strange? I'm not talking locals, not talking with the living. At any of these locations, were there ever moments, even, you know, beforehand when you were going out to scout, anything like that? Anything that kind of made you go,
Yeah, there are definitely like moments, you know, you go to certain places, and I'm sure you guys probably too, like where you just get an uneasy feeling. I think that, and this isn't to sound tough because as we've already discussed, like I'm not the guy to sell that, but we were in this like go mode so much that like it's hard to feel anything at that point. And then if you had the rare opportunity to feel something, then that stuck out in your mind. But I remember Barry Fitz even pointed out to me, he's like, you're not open. You're not here to, he could sense it on me. I wasn't there for that experience. My experience was very much this like us and the places we were going. And I remember that's where I heard the phrase for the first time, the only certain mind is a closed mind. And that's something else that I took away from it, was that if I did get that weird feeling, you know, be open. You don't know what's going on.
I mean, I was genuinely interested in whether paranormal stuff existed or not, or whether I would see any. And I feel like I had two experiences on that.
What about since you've been home? Anything happened ever since then, or you or your wife?
Most of the bumps and noises we hear around here when we first moved in this place, which is not too long after GHI, what's that? Like scratching, scraping, whatever. And it's just basically like big families of raccoons and things. I always wish that I could see, you know, signs of things for sure. You know, my mother died this year, and that, of course, you know, makes you kind of like, could there be a sign, you know, something, but I don't know if I'm like open enough to it. But the two things that happened to me on that show were definitely, like, I don't know how to explain them. There was really something, like, it wasn't like that, whether I was closed or not, like I felt something for sure.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite location or country that you traveled to with us? Was there one place that really stuck out as, you know, significant to you for some reason?
I mean, I could fall in love real easy. So there are a couple places that sort of stuck out as a result of the relationships that I was able to, you know, forge during the brief moments we were there. You remember Hell's Gate? I don't know. There's a lot of hell places.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were at Hell's Gate, and my part of my job was to, if there were interviews lined up, to go and vet the interviews in person, and if there weren't, find some interviews, find some people that had been there. And we went to this tiny town. It was just me, Hobbs, not a great translator, and we just drive into this tiny town of like, I mean, a village. I'm sorry, not a town, a village. And everyone was just like, everyone had heard we were at Hell's Gate, and they were just like ducking away, except for this one old man who had to be like, I mean, ancient. But I noticed him right away because he was still brushing these horses. And he was like feeding them and brushing them. And he was like, for an old man, he was like, he was doing good. And I wanted to talk to him, but our local was like, no, you don't want to, let's just keep going. But finally, there's nobody who wanted to talk to us. No, everyone was afraid to talk to us. And I was like, that guy right there is not going to be afraid to talk to me. So we get out, and I hail him in whatever, dumb redneck way. And he's about to engage with me, and his daughter came out, who had to be my age at the time. And she spoke English. And she said, "What do you want?" And I was like, is that your father? She's like, that is my grandfather, yes. And I was like, may I ask him some questions? She's like, no, you may not. And then he yells something to her and goes inside the house. And she like just looks to the ground really angry and looks at me, and I was like, I'm sorry, what did he say? She said, "You'll want to have coffee too." And I was like, okay. So we went in, and he sat and told us that at Hell's Gate, he was forced to work there by the Nazis. And one day as they were retreating, they came in and shot everybody. And it just so happened that he was at home. He was late for work. And they put everybody in the courtyard, and they plugged every single one of them. And him and one other chef, I think a cook, were the only ones left alive. They massacred the whole village, and he came back. And I was just like in shock. Because, I mean, that was part of the big reason why people didn't go back there, was that type of traumatizing event. And I was like, I have to get you on camera. I have to talk to you about this. And it broke my heart because we never got to go back. The schedule didn't allow it. I got to, all I did was share coffee with him. And he didn't, and I remember him looking at me, and not even believing when he was like, "You'll be back." He was just, all he said was, "Or at least now you know that story." And yeah, one of the biggest regrets was not getting him on camera. But yeah, that's the kind of, you didn't know what you were going to get when you go to those places.
You know, and that's one of the very, we talked about this before, the frustrating things for us. You know, there were so many missed opportunities, and we get, you know, time constraints for when you edit down, you know, an episode and all of that. But there's so many things that went unseen, unheard, that could have made the show so much better and gave it the depth I feel like it was kind of missing.
Yeah, I mean that story alone to me was better than some of our full episodes. Like that's a real life like touching moment, and like the, you know, the fact that he just like oversees for whatever the reason is he doesn't get there. Like that's amazing. I had no idea. I had no idea that happened. I didn't even know that they had murdered all the people that worked there. I had no idea. That's amazing.
Well, we knew we couldn't do the interview, and if we couldn't do the interview, then, you know, tree falls in the woods, and if nobody's around, it was that scenario. And I'm sorry, I thought I told y'all that story. I thought I told y'all some weepy, imbibed night where I was like, and I never got to tell his story.
No,
Well,
damn you, Micah, and your secrets.
That's it. Now we can tell his story here in our little YouTube platform, at least. So at least it continues on somewhere, you know.
No,
yeah, and that's why I would tell that story. I mean, it had nothing to do with nothing. I was in Thailand is the last time I told that story, just because I was like, it's my burden. Like that's that thing I carry around, because I'm like, this man had a story where he lost his best friend, was one of the people that got killed, and you know, they're just buried, and there we were.
You know, the first thing that comes to my mind is Slovenia, Predjama. I mean that castle was just so magnificent. You know, built into the wall of the, you know, the mountain wall, and like going back into the caves. And those caves, right? Like I didn't know this before we went there, but it was like, they say like the caves are like the biggest caves in the world, just going back for miles. And it just had such a great, it looked amazing. And then everywhere you went in there, like, you know, some of it probably was like dripping water, and some of it was like rats in the thatched ceilings. But that one really caught my imagination a lot. And then that was the one where I had like the one of two, you know, supposedly unexplained experiences, you know, on there that it did get mentioned in the wrap up. What do you call it when you talk to the host and tell what you found?
The reveal scene. Yeah.
The reveal. Yeah. They mentioned that in the reveal briefly. They just said something like one of our camera people had an experience or something. But
yeah. Were y'all with us for Costa Rica?
I was, yeah.
I think just back here stateside.
You were okay. This was we went to this island prison. It was gnarly. It was amazing.
Crazy.
But, yeah, like, I mean, truly just nuts. But it was funny because I was so exhausted. There's a reoccurring theme, and I was trying to get a little bit of shut eye on B-roll night, but nobody could. Y'all, or, you know, on camera was with us. You know, everybody was together because, you know, you only got one shot at getting out there on a boat, and I woke up from like this terrible nightmare. I grabbed my walkie and I go for Micah. And everyone's looking around at me and they're like, I was like, go for Micah. And they're like, dude, no one is calling for you on walkie. And I was like, I could swear someone's calling. They're like, no one is calling for you. Go back to sleep. You're out of your mind. So I'm like, okay. I fall back to sleep. And the next thing I wake up to is people screaming, and they're like, the generator's gonna blow. It's on fire. It's gonna blow. And I see people leaping off the dock, and like, someone's just coming over at the last minute to douse the generator to put the fire out. And I just kind of looked over and I was like, man, this is the craziest dream I've ever had. That had to be one of the sillier moments.
What about just for a personal experience? Like, what was your favorite country that you got to go to with us?
My favorite country? Yeah, okay, let me just go through. All right, so New Zealand was really fun. Like, I mean, you know, that was my first one, so I mean, Larnaca Castle was an interesting experience. Let me think. Slovenia was cool. I remember having a day off because we stayed in Trieste, Italy, and then drove in there. Slovenia was just a beautiful country. Did you guys ever get to walk around like Ljubljana or anything? It was just such a nice town.
I don't really remember going around Ljubljana. I know that was kind of the base where we flew into or whatever, but I remember Trieste, Italy for sure.
Yeah, that was really cool walking around there. Um, South Africa, Cape Town was an amazing city. Did you guys get around there? I was really sick as a dog there. I kind of had one night, and I remember like some cops who I think were probably fake cops.
Yeah.
Like I think somebody I won't name, well, it was like smoking a joint on the crew walking around on their day off, and like these fake cops, I'm pretty sure, were like, "Oh, you're smoking, we're gonna throw you in jail," and then like somebody was just getting like, "Oh God, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen?" It's like, man, just give them some money, and basically just gave them like $50, and they just, okay, all right, and, you be careful, you know. But yeah, I remember I was really sick, but I heard like there was kind of a legendary night out that night. Snapper like hooked up with some great South African beauty, and
So it sounds like both you and Dustin were really sick in South Africa.
oh, were
Yeah.
you too?
Yeah, I get horrible respiratory infection when I was there.
Oh no.
And yeah, it was bad. I came back home. I had well, there's black mold in my room, and
Oh,
so by the time I got home, I had thrush. I had like
mhm,
I had bronchitis or something. I was all messed up. It was
mhm,
it was rough in South Africa for me. So there was
mhm,
no going out and partying, but I do remember hearing the story that you spoke of, and
mhm.
the payoff with the fake cops. But
Yeah, yeah,
that was part of international travel. You never knew who you're going to run into.
yeah. That's true. That was a beautiful town. I don't know. I mean, I would have loved to have had more days off in each place, but it was always nice just to have at least one to.
Yeah, yeah, that was it. You get one, and that was about it. But it was nice to have a little chance to go out and explore where you could, you know.
Hmm.
So I mean, we talked about pretty much most of the places that we hit up. We didn't really talk about Penary Castle. A quick
Hmm.
mention, the 1,420 some odd steps that we all had to take up and down. And we did hire some Sherpas.
Hmm.
However,
God.
Dustin and I recall, had to actually carry up some of the pelican cases,
Hmm.
and I believe you were filming us at the time.
Probably.
And the whole
I
time,
heard.
I think Dustin and I were just talking about pizza and stuff because we were starving.
Mm.
Um,
Uh,
but I know that, crew, because you guys had to go up and film B-roll in addition to just coming with us for the investigation. Then you had to do the reveal and all of that. So I think you guys traveled up those steps more than any of the cast.
I feel sure I went up and down those like 3 or 4 times, but the Sherpas probably went even more because they had to carry just all this gear. I mean, didn't we have like a generator and some lights up there? I feel sure that we did. I
Yep.
mean, we didn't have them on during the investigation, but we had them on later for doing, just shots of the castle at night and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had to carry all that stuff up. And I have a feeling that they were like, sorry, Sherpas can only carry camera and lighting gear. They can't carry any of your shit up there. So you guys have to do it all yourselves. I'm feeling that was how you guys got prioritized. Yeah, it was funny. That was one, I have a feeling that was one where some Barry or somebody was kind of like, yeah, we don't really think there's anything up here, but we'll go and we'll just try it out just in case. It's going to make a great story, and I remember feeling that there too. Like it was just very peaceful. It was just a lovely night out on top of the mountain. Cool to think of all the history that happens, and just
Yeah.
very, very pleasant.
Yeah, it was super cool and it was beautiful. The Carpathian Mountains are gorgeous. So I'm sure shooting B-roll and stuff was not too difficult.
No, God, no. I mean, that's what I'm saying is like all these places were just so spectacular. Like sometimes on shoots that I'm on, you always got to go get B-roll of, to stitch together the scenes that you do, like or show where it is, and sometimes you're just like, a lot of shows that are like on intervention, you're basically like, in some, box store suburb of some town, where there's a Chili's and a Olive Garden and whatever, and you're just like, what B-roll can I get here? But there, you're on top of the Carpathian Mountains, with these ancient stoneworks, and it's just like, you just wish you had more time to shoot it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really just really delightful. All you guys are really fun, and I really liked hanging with you guys a lot. Some of my favorite crew that I've ever gotten a chance to hang out with. We didn't always get to, but you guys just all felt really sincere, and like you really cared about what you did. You weren't actors, and that was just yeah, I don't know, it was fun hanging with you guys.
Yeah, it's amazing that it's been so long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It has. I know.
Years,
Like,
I think.
what'd you say, 12 years?
12 or
13?
13 years.
I know, it doesn't feel like it's been that long in a sense, because like I see you, Brandy, especially on Instagram and stuff, and all the things you do every now and then. It's like, oh yeah, there's Brandy again. Like, it doesn't feel like, oh God, I haven't seen her in 12 years. Yeah, it's funny, but yeah, I really enjoyed that.
So you made an appearance on one of your first episodes with us. You made an appearance as, I believe, Dustin was rolling up cable at Rockland Island Manor House, and they were shooting like the B-roll of like us setting up or something. And here comes Micah in the background, walking through the door like.
Yeah, that was the least offensive thing I did there. I remember, y'all, man, do y'all remember this? I had stayed up. I was quite excited about my first tour of duty, and I had stayed up many nights, unwork related. And where there was one on the last day of filming, everyone was trying to get everything set up, and I think I somehow just sort of dozed off for a second and knocked a painting to a certain degree, and like caused a ruckus. And everyone's like, so if Mike is done falling asleep standing up, we can make the show now.
It happens.
Yeah. I feel like that would have happened a lot. And Dustin, both of you guys actually were very patient with me. And Dustin you were the sweetest about it. Because like I'd do something, you'd be like, hey, Micah. And I'm like, yeah, yes, sir. And you're like, hey, buddy, so you're in the shot. And I was like, oh, can you see me? You're like, yeah, we have these things called night vision. And also we have thermal cameras. So yeah, we see you.
We could find you pretty easily, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It was always easy to determine. You're like, okay, well, that's definitely not, that is Micah.
Right, it's not paranormal.
Nope. We're going to watch him stumble around for a second, and there he goes. Okay.
At least you were quiet about it, though. Like, because when we had Dave Hobbs producing, Dave would always drop things, like drop the walkie, drop the clipboard. Like, there was always so much kerfluffle in the hallway. Like, you were always super silent. Like, you might be like looming in a doorway, but you were quiet about it.
I was always good about being creepy. I was never. I think y'all nicknamed Hobbs Fumbles. Didn't y'all call him Fumbles or something?
Yeah, he had a couple of names. That was one.
Well, that's actually quite a compliment from you guys. If I was actually that quiet, because that's.
Yeah, you had to be, right? You were good at
it. I wasn't hiding from you guys. I was hiding from everything else.
From doing GHI and where you are now, like, how does that compare? How does that experience, that style, the whatever you want to call it, versus what you've done since? How would you compare that?
Man, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know. Everything's so different, and you guys really had a format down. Already when I got there. I mean, I guess I got there like a couple of visits before you came on, Brandy. But yeah, I mean, it was really like things had already been kind of formatted and thought out, and with the a lot of the scenes that weren't part of the night, where you guys were investigating, like it was kind of normal stuff. But then that you guys really had like a very, figured out, like, okay, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we go about it. And it was just such a fun, I don't know, it was really fun watching you guys like go around and put up cameras and things, and then like kind of coming back to the room and then going out again with another couple of investigators, like listening or doing pictures, and then coming back. And we would go out and do all those things. And then, and I would always be like on the infrared camera on you guys talking. And then like I'd, later on would have to come back and do just like a little bit of B-roll to show the rooms and stuff like that afterward.
Right.
But you know, so it's kind of such a specific type of format that you know, a lot of the things I end up doing are like I ended up soon after that I ended up going to shoot Intervention, and that was a, you know, horrifying show in a different way, you know. But that's like where you have absolutely no idea what's going to happen, and you're just kind of with somebody for just days, you know, just waiting to see what kind of crazy stuff's going to happen. And then I'm doing a show recently called We're Here on HBO that's about drag queens, and that's just yet another really formatted kind of show where you kind of some documentary stuff and then some like drag performance and stuff like that.
So would you do, I mean, you and I have had this conversation before, but would you, if you were offered to do another GHI, would you say yes, or would you be like, I'm going to stick with scripted?
You know, I've always wanted to do scripted. Scripted was actually why I got into the industry, and I took GHI as a rare opportunity for, you know, to travel and learn, because, you know, you gotta, if you want to write, you gotta write about something. And up to that point, I didn't have too much to say, and I first, well, no, I'm too old now. Probably couldn't hang.
Hey, you know what? You're younger than me, so chill with the too old here.
By a month. Last time I was up with Dustin, he was still like just in the best shape ever and could do anything. And I was like over there wheezing as I was climbing up hills. He's like, "Hey, Michael, what's going on?" And I was just this like, I mean, that was the last time you saw, actually, that was towards the end of my unscripted days. It was the last time I saw Dustin. And you know, I don't know if you can tell, I've gotten some sleep since then, and I'm a little bit healthier.
We all looked like death. Like if you look back on some of those episodes, like, I mean, the pace was ridiculous for sure.
Mm-hmm. Maybe that's the first thing I saw you. I'm like, look at you with color on your face.
All right.
I don't think you could ever do a show like GHI again, because it was so wild, you know. Like, I mean, yeah, all of us were kind of nuts to be like, yep, this is what we do.
If you could travel like we did back in the day, if you could travel like that again for a show, would that be something you would do, or are you kind of like settled more into the domestic arena?
Well, you know what's interesting is that that show prompted me to move in with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife. But we had been together for a year, and then we were gonna go. And then when I, you know, got this job, you know, my wife was kind of like, well, all right, you're going to be gone for like 3 months, more or less. Like, you know, what's going on with us? What are we doing or whatever? And like kind of the next thing she wanted was like, well, you know, I think that like maybe the next level of commitment is to move in together. And so it kind of going on the show kind of prompted me doing that. But then since then, I'd say that like I loved traveling so much. And if I were single, I'd do that all the time. But I try not to make too many trips out, you know, nowadays. I try to do like maybe just one thing at a time, you know, not for months.
Well, it's nice to know that GHI brought at least two people together.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Right.
We did something. Yeah. That was good.
That's right.
Since GHI, you've gone on to do a lot of different things, and I think just recently you worked on Penny Dreadful, City of Angels, which was great, by the way. I was so disappointed that it wasn't picked up again.
Yeah.
But, you know, so you said GHI was your first experience, like working in production until now. Like, what have you learned? What maybe stuck with you from GHI that you've taken with you? I mean, anything that you can talk about?
I will say that, and I remember the crew on GHI telling me this when there would be really tough days, and they looked at me and they'd say, "Listen, buddy, this is the hardest thing you'll ever do." And I've done really difficult things, but GHI was incredibly taxing. And I mean, you had that endorphin under the, you know, the energy to do it because you were seeing these amazing things. But I mean, I'm sure you guys have mentioned this on your show that like we were going to a new country every week. And, you know, most shows will just like cheat it, you know, they'll be like, oh yeah, we were here for a week. We were doing it in real time. Like we straight up were going to a new country every week, very little turnaround. I don't even know if we had days off. I mean, we just went.
Yeah.
And I will say that I built up there were very few things afterwards that could shake me to the degree that like the challenges, because every new country also presented a new challenge, you know, and a lot of people probably don't, because we didn't shoot it, but like you guys had to go through the same challenges we were going through. You know, if a van, you know, was about to fall off a mountain, you guys were in with it. I do remember the lack of internet, and like at the time, you know, cell phone plans, international cell phone plans were way too expensive. So there was like 2 company phones, and like one person, maybe 2 people got the internet. And I never left the country before, nor had I worked on a show before. My parents were terrified because I'm a sweet boy, and they didn't know what was going to happen to their sweet boy. And we were and I gave them the VP of operations phone number, because at the time I worked in the office. I didn't know. I didn't know what anybody's title even meant. I just, you know, he told me what to do. So I gave him a phone number because my parents insisted that I give them a phone number. And we were in some Central American country where they had an attempted coup. And everybody was sick on the crew, and I like, we had one satellite phone as well, and all I see is Hobbs comes out to me and he goes, "Dude, you got to call your parents." They had called the VP of operations and they were like, "Where's our son?" And he's like, "Who are you?" And they're like, "We need to know where Micah Sampson is." And he's like, "I don't know who you're talking about." Because I mean, it's a huge company. So he kicks it down. They tell him the show. He kicks it to the EP, and even, you know, and the EP is like, "Who?" So eventually, it goes down like 4 different lines of like very official people before finally landing on us in Central America, and they'd be like, "Bro, you gotta call your mom." And I had to call her on a sat phone and tell her everything was okay. And we didn't have any internet. There was nothing. You know, you were gone.
Nothing. That's it.
Right.
Brian, as director of photography, what type of things like were on your plate in terms of you're dealing with international travel, we're filming investigations, you know, in the dark, at a time where these type of shows were not, you know, up and running really. We were kind of, you know, the first couple that were doing it. So
That's
there's
right.
a lot. Like, and what did that come down to? Like, what is like B-roll day like? Like, how do you organize that kind of stuff?
The things I remember the most of are the investigations, because they was just so vivid and just so much fun. I'm trying to think of the other things, like, you know,
I mean, we would have like,
somewhere.
we would usually have like 2 nights of investigation, sometimes a random outing, which usually went nowhere. And then you guys would have like your B-roll day where just production would go back to film the place, like, you know,
right.
time-lapse shots, the nighttime shots, all that stuff.
Yeah, and like you do set up for in-cars and all of that kind of stuff.
That's right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, you know, I don't know. It kind of, I mean, there were such beautiful locations that it was just always kind of fun. Like, you know, I just remember like, where was this place? There's a castle. I think it was the one in Romania. Was that something that we all did together? Did we all do the one in Romania?
Castle?
Oh, of course. Yeah, it was Dracula's castle. Well, this was something different then. I can't remember what place this was, but I just remember like getting time lapses, and you know, everything was just such a gorgeous. All the locations are beautiful. The one, the Lady Bathory's castle, was just kind of stunning, and it was just fun to like kind of go around getting all the cool things. And we would know, like, we would kind of know, or we would know all the different scenes that you guys had shot, and so then we'd have to go get B-roll to match it, you know, like the things that you talked about. Then we'd like shoot a shot of this, shoot a shot of that, whatever. And that was, you know, it was all just kind of, it was just kind of very pleasant being in a beautiful place and shooting things that fit in with what you guys were saying. You know, if you like, I know we're going to move over here, you know, and then, you know, I'd always want to be on you guys walking backwards or whatever. So then I would just kind of like then come back and turn around and shoot the frontward shot if, you know, going through where we did.
Right. Yeah, you know, and that's something like I think Dustin probably has too, but I often would have to explain to like the viewers that would get very frustrated if we, as the cast, would say, you know, "What was that? Did you hear that?" And then complain like, "Well, why isn't the camera guy filming what you're seeing?" And you try to explain to them, well, that wasn't their job. Their job was to film us, to document us trying to document the paranormal.
Right. And you guys were the ones that had the sensitive equipment anyway, right? Like, we didn't necessarily have full spectrum cameras or anything.
Right.
I mean,
Though,
we
I
did
mean,
have at some point we had like a heat camera or whatever, but
yeah. Though I mean, I think, and I don't know if it happened when you were with us or not. But there were times when evidence would come through the production cameras or the
mm,
audio or things like that that the
right.
crew were running at the time.
That was always kind of a nice backup for us too. If we had something that we thought we heard, or we caught something on one of the recorders but it was faint, we could
Hmm.
turn to the cam operator or the audio and say, can we get that tape? Can we get that recording? So we could see
Hmm.
if you guys picked it up better. And sometimes that did happen. Sometimes the audio was clearer on production's equipment than it was on ours.
And I seem to recall that you guys would say, "Hey, Brian, would you look over there for a second?" And then I'd pan around and just see if I could see anything, or just to like go back and see if you'd like see something later. I seem to recall you guys doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we had to do that a lot too with IR too to make sure we weren't seeing the IR
Right.
camera shadow and that kind of thing, which was a
Right.
learning curve I think for everybody at that point. You're
Yeah,
crossing IR beams, you're getting light reflection everywhere. There's a lot of that going on.
that's true. Yeah, I remember one time, and I think this speaks a lot to the integrity of you guys, but I feel like at Nottingham Castle in South Africa, do you guys remember this whole kind of like conference where like, okay, we think we found something on camera, and we were looking at it and all just like, okay, we don't want to like say this is real if we haven't, you know, really ruled out everything else. And we were all just kind of sitting there thinking about it. And then eventually it got figured out that like, oh no, it was like and I think it was a scene where I was in where I'd like stepped in front of like an infrared light or something like that. And so it ended up like doing this, shadow on the back wall. And so then therefore you guys didn't use it because we figured that out.
Right. Actually, it's funny you say that because as we call it fuzzy memories from the road, we don't remember everything quite clearly. But
Hmm.
as you're telling that story, I swear it was your shorts, the part of your shorts that were hanging out, like went in front of
Mm.
one of the IR lights or something. And
Yeah, right.
because you used to wear like cargo shorts all the time.
I did. That's
Yeah,
true.
I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure that was it. But yeah, we did that. Like we would get together and try to recreate the scene or try to all look at it and be like, well, what else could that be? Rather than just running with paranormal all the time, which was
And I
good.
think
I'm
that
glad we
that,
all did that.
speaks a lot to the group of people that we had when
Hmm.
filming GHI. We had the cast and we had the crew, and in a lot of ways we were very separate, but
Hmm.
there were a
Hmm.
lot of times that after working together for so long, we were able to work together in that way, and everyone understood kind of what was on the line and what was expected, and what we wanted as an outcome, and to be
Hmm.
truthful and to
Yeah.
do all of that. And I feel like that was a very rare thing.
Hmm. I mean, I would say that you guys had more integrity about the reality of stuff going on than like some shows I've been on that did not have supernatural stuff, where like people kind of like, well, this didn't really happen, but we can kind of make it look like it did. It's more drama or whatever. But you guys were like very, I really felt, like none of you guys were, like just trying to make something happen just for the sake of it. Like you were really genuinely like interested in is something there or not. And that was one reason why I enjoyed the show, because if I thought it was a bunch of fakey stuff, wouldn't have been fun.
Well, that's another thing a lot of people don't appreciate too about being on camera for these types of shows. It's there's a lot of sacrifice. I don't even know the half of it that you guys had to give up. And yeah, I glaze over the fact that people have families because I just didn't at the time, but or now. But it's a lot to give up.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. It was tough. I mean, even for me, like, I remember towards the end, like, right before I chose not to come back, and, my little sister was getting married, and it's like, I got the call, I think, like, a day or two before they were going to head out from, I think it was Cat still, and he's like, hey, do you want to go to wherever it was? And I'm like, no, my sister, I'm like, a bridesmaid for my sister's wedding, like tomorrow. No, this isn't happening. I mean, that's something too, that everything was kind of very like, hurry up and wait. until you have to hit the ground running and go. You know, it was constant. You just never knew when they'd give you that call. And I mean, even we talked about it in I think our last Fuzzy Memories episode prior to the crew, this episode, about the episode that never was, and we were sitting in Singapore. And we just didn't know what was going to happen. We were just there. We were waiting for someone to tell us, this is what we're doing. And it never happened.
I wasn't even in Singapore, but you guys used it as the term of when something was going to be Singapore.
Yeah.
I was familiar with it. They're like, uh-oh, Singapore. I was like, no, not Singapore. We're not doing Singapore.
Not with Micah Air. We're making something.
Not with me. Not with this champ on board. Now, how do I make this walkie-talkie work? No, I think, and just for anybody who doesn't know, I don't know if y'all discussed this in your previous episodes, the schedule was just brutal. So as much as it sounds like we're complaining because like, oh, you got to travel all over the world and stay in, you know, and be with each other and have these wild adventures. It's like, yeah, but you drive 10 hours or fly or whatever it was, you know, scramble to get wherever you are. You're there. We scout shoot the tour. Then, and I don't know how much I'm even really allowed. I mean, it was all pretty real time. I mean, the way it's cut together in the episode, I think is pretty much how we shot it. Mm-hmm. But so it'd be tour, investigate. Oh, that's right. We used to shoot the tour and the investigation on the
same day.
No, like that's crazy talk. You try bringing that to an unscripted show now, they'd be like, if you want us to kill each other, we'll try to do that. And that was Tuesday. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And then so we'd shoot B-roll. Y'all do evidence review while we were shooting B-roll. So when like y'all were down, and then we'd be doing the analysis. And at that point, oftentimes we were doing analysis.
Revealed
day because they compared it. Remember, they built our schedule based on domestic on the original Ghost Hunters, and they're like, "Hey, what are you talking about? Boston, Italy, same difference."
Yeah. Right. Not to mention like the different customs too, because like some people are like, oh, we don't work that day. But, like, what are you talking about? Like we work every, you know, but certain like towns like, oh no, like Tuesday, no.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, it's a banker's holiday or some like saint that died on this day. And we're like, we don't know all we know is go. That is it. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that is like the best education I had was like, was that. And I remember someone pointed out that at the time we broke the Geneva Convention rules for methods of torture, and it was just our work schedule. Like we fit like there's like 10 of them, and we filled like 6 of them just by like what we did for work. Because you didn't know where you were going, you didn't know what time you were going to get anywhere. Yeah, I mean, and it was like you'd be disrupted quickly and often. And yeah, I mean, just so everyone is very clear on that, like this was not like some luxury tour around the world. It was, you had to be good to go.
What happened on the boat in Tasmania, Micah? Tell us.
I went whale watching, Dustin.
Oh, I see.
I went whale watching, and it was a lovely time.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
It was just I had gone out the night before, and when anybody presents any kind of idea to me in those moments, I'm like, yeah, heck yeah. And they're like, you want to get on a boat at 6 a.m. after staying up all night and doing what you're doing? And I was like, heck yeah, I do. I want to see a whale. And on the coast of Tasmania, the waves are so gnarly, and I was just getting slumped. And I also was stupid. I shaved my whole face except a mustache, and I looked like the most just unpleasant person. And so I'm on this boat thinking I'm real cute, and then suddenly just immediately sick. Ooh, it was rough.
There was a lot of I mean, I can never participate because here I am just approaching 44 and I finally have some scruff, but there was a lot of facial hair on the road, like big beards, weird mustaches. I remember where we were where we shaved Snapper's face and like they did like a time lapse and like cutting off parts of his big beard at one point.
I do remember that.
Yeah, that was a big thing out there.
Yeah.
I think this is what happens when you leave a group of all, you know, I mean, like you were talking about, we were each other's family. We were each other's like protection. we were also the people that we had to entertain. And I think that a lot of that came as I don't know, maybe it was bonding. I'm not sure what we were doing.
Some way, like cavemen in some way,
Yeah.
like bonding. Remember trying to find laundromats and what a challenge that was sometimes. Like you're
And
gone like 2 to 3 weeks at
you
least.
flatter me in thinking I was trying to be clean at any point. Appreciate that.
You pulled it together well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that too.
Yes,
I,
sir.
There were a couple times I do remember seeing Micah in the same exact clothes the following morning that I saw him the night before.
Right.
So
There was no like walk of shame either. You know,
No.
it's not like, oh my God. It was it was just us all the time.
Yeah.
Like there were and very much like we are family, we hang out, we are always together. So it was like if I was up, you could clock somebody else on the crew who was up with me. And you could usually tell because they probably looked as tired as I did. But yeah, there was no walk of shame. It was just like, well, time to go back to work.
but that was what was so great. And like I've gone on to work on other like paranormal shows and different things. And I will say, you know, you can call our crew, cast and crew dysfunctional or whatever, you know, we all did things, you know, that maybe now we're like, oh, I can't believe I did that. But we all knew what our job was. And we all, despite how we felt, despite what happened the night before or who may have gotten into a fight with the night before or whatever it was, the next day you hit the ground running and you do your job. And that's one thing, you know, I may not talk to a great deal of people that, you know, I worked with on GHI now, but I will say for everyone, hands down, I think we were all the hardest working group of people, especially young people, that I've ever worked with since.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've never worked with anybody who played and worked as hard as all of us collectively. And I mean that like those guys that told me like this will be the hardest thing you ever do, they'd already seen some stuff. So like for them, and no one wanted to leave. It was just an exceptional bunch of people that, you know, were together by fate and circumstance. And I mean, even now we're talking and yeah, you'll always, both of you guys and everybody a part of that crew will always be my first, and you'll always be a part, like a life milestone for me.
So, Brian, thanks so much for spending the time with us, man, and going down memory lane. It's great to see you again. And I mean, out of all of it, you know, we appreciate your time being here with us, but we really appreciate everything you did for us in the field. If it wasn't for you and our crew, nobody would have been able to see and really appreciate all that we had got to do out there. And I'm glad to know that we made your marriage possible. We're going to take full responsibility for that.
That's right.
Congratulations.
You all individually, each of you individually.
Yes. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, no, it's been so fun to just relive this stuff. I never get a chance to talk about it with anybody, but it's just like some of the 3 best months of my life.
I just wanted to say thanks to Micah because, you know, as we talk about how amazing the adventures are, Brandy and I always talk about how amazing our crew was because, you know, without you guys and ladies really doing all the work you had to do behind the scenes, putting up with all the stuff on location, that's a hell of a lot of work to do. And then especially for someone like you that was brand new coming into it. And you know, you didn't even have a walkie, and that was exciting for you. And
Yeah.
but you made it happen. And you guys really pulled it together country after country where you've got language barriers, where plans are falling apart, but we always made it happen, except that one time in Singapore, which we can't hold against you because you weren't there.
I wasn't there. I was there, everybody.
Thank you, Micah Sampson, for being a part of the show and for making it happen, and also for being a part of our personal lives, because like you said, there's a great connection that goes back to that one moment in time that we got to share together all over the world, man. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dustin. Thank you guys. And I mean, I know that there oftentimes is this separation between crew and on camera personalities, but that wasn't, again, it was the Wild West. There was no separation, you know? So I thank you guys for giving me so many wonderful memories and so many adventures, you know? I mean, horses, boats, all of the silly stuff is usually with one of you guys. you know? So, I mean, I appreciate that so much, but thank you guys for giving me my early, like heart into what this industry can be. It can be an adventure.
That was quite the ferry ride. We talked about it briefly during the episode too. Like we had to reschedule it. Like the first day they wouldn't let us even try to make it because the
Right.
sea was so rough. So yeah, it's a long way away from Texas for sure. Huh?
Yeah, no, it was. I don't know how it was negotiated or how we ended up. I just remember, like, we woke up one morning, everyone's like, "Get your stuff, we're going," and it was like, "Cool."
Yeah, I think we paid you know, the boat captain a little extra under the table to take us, because I think he was even like, nope. And this guy was like grizzled and like, you know, he's seen things,
Yeah.
but even he was like, this is not happening. Like, we're going to die.
It was like Quinn from Jaws, but he was afraid of just going across to the island because it was that bad.
You know, it's funny. I tell that story often because it was the first time. I don't know why I thought there would be some adult or somebody that was going to swoop in and be like. And I was just sitting on the ferry and I was like, surely they won't. Surely this can't happen. Like we're not going to die. There's like I don't know who. I don't know what magical adult was meant to show up. And the truth was is that, you know, we were the adults, and like it was back in the days of like being a cowboy and unscripted. So it was
Yeah.
it was a cool intro.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. And I usually use that kind of term. It was the Wild West of international television for docu-reality series, because, I mean, we were kind of one of the first shows that really did this kind of stuff. So that, anything terrible that could happen would probably happen to us. Like, we never had security, we never had medics on standby, and we never had like any of these things that shows nowadays have.
I forgot about all that stuff.
Yeah.
I just remember I learned to carry a knife. I don't know.
What do you remember about drinking with Barry?
Oh, well, some of my favorite times, actually.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I won't go into. Oh man, so
Details.
much censorship that needs to go into a lot of it. But I remember what was it? His drink was a
Jameson and White.
yes, a Jameson and White. And I went back to Ireland thinking that I was gonna, you know, I'll be like, I'll tell the locals what's up. I was like, yeah, can I get a Jameson and White? And they're like, what are you, a woman? You're a little girl? Is that what you want? He went, hey, Sally over here wants a little Jameson White. And I was like, isn't that a manly drink? Like, I had no idea. And Barry Laird told me, it was like, oh yeah, I don't drink.
It's like a Shirley Temple, pretty much.
Yes, yeah, that's what it would be. It'd be like, can I have a Roy Rogers? You know, going to like the hardest pub, and I walk in and I'm like, that Shirley Temple looks good. Who wants to play darts? It was yeah, but I do that was where some of my favorite times, because you know Barry and I would get on whatever a philosophical argument, and it was always Dustin. You did make a rare appearance every now and again, like early in the night.
Yeah,
kind
you have one and then go to bed.
Yeah, you do a little one of these, like give everybody a wave and say, "I'll see some of you alive tomorrow."
Pretty much it. Yep, that was
Yeah.
it. I had a nice little routine going for a while, Mike. I used to bring DVDs of like TV shows from America, and I would try to stay on like on Monday nights. Like I'd watch WKRP in Cincinnati, and on Tuesday, and that was kind of like a little bit of normalcy for me, knowing I had like a set TV schedule, even though it was just DVDs in my room. It kind of made it work. Remember portable DVD players? Like these things don't even like nobody needs any of this anymore. But like
That was expensive too.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. I guess I can talk about this. We used to go to each of your rooms before we do evidence review, just so like, you know, we were all on the same page and we could all, you know, hear some of the stuff that might be discussed. And I got a little, it was really like a little magic vacation, because I just go see everybody's room. And Dustin, your room was immaculate. It was always so clean, very tidy. It was like former military dude's room, and it was always really nice because it always smelled nice. And that was another bonus is like when we go to Brandy's room, because I'm just with dudes all day too. And so we go into her room and it'd all be like very put together and nice, candles. And I was like, thanks for this a little bit of civilization, guys. I got room.
Right. I do remember even back in my days with GH sometimes, like you would go to somebody's room to get like the DVR to pick up like, you know, EVP recorders. And there's like, you know, Slim Jim wrappers on the floor, half empty bags of chips everywhere. Like all the curtains are drawn tight. I'm like, what happened in here? It's just really strange.
You've got like right on the wall. They're like red rum, red rum. You're like, why?
Yeah. I can't live like that. I like to have everything in its place more or less, you know.
Yeah.
Easier.
I respect that as I've gotten older. As I've gotten older, I get it. Because like I remember I worked with some people that bring their latte machine or like their own little hot plates and stuff like that. And I never got it. I was always, I mean, you remember somebody called me salami pockets. Because I used to steal the food at breakfast. Not steal. It was all included in the breakfast.
Yeah.
And I would, you know, that's when we'd wrap. So I'd take all the food and bring it up to my room, and I would just keep it on me the next day. And so, you know, and I don't think I ever kept it in my pocket, but it was in my bag. And I think someone saw me sneak some meat from my backpack. Like, what is happening?
There's a lot of innuendo. Yeah. Sure. I think
You're right. I set myself up for it, and this is why I was the new guy for like, even after I was not the new guy.
That's true. That's true.
I was the new guy for like the whole time. But that's all right. All right. Well, now I got to ask. I don't know if y'all are allowed to answer this though. We're
allowed to do whatever we want to do.
Freedom.
What do y'all think? One of the silliest places you've been? Not bad, just something silly.
Oh, geez. I don't know. Every place was the most haunted, whatever, and a lot of them were just nonsense. I think for me, the one I was most disappointed in going to was, and not based on like, you know, like I always wanted to go to Dracula's Castle, and we had this huge build for it, and didn't have the evidence we wanted, but it was still an awesome location. But in Malaysia, went to a place, Keeley's Castle, and it was just like the evidence that they showed us as to what other teams had gathered there was just garbage. And I remember it was pouring rain on the tour, and so we ducked in this office that wasn't part of the tour per se for us. Nothing paranormal had happened there. As we're ducked in this room to get the equipment out of the rain, I remember seeing pamphlets and posters that were advertising Keeley's Castle as the most haunted location as seen on Ghost Hunters International. And I'm like, we haven't done anything yet. And it was just like, yeah, it just felt bad. It just felt dirty, you know? It's like, oh, your money's on the dresser. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
I want to be there.
Oh my gosh. So I think this happened after Dustin left, I think. But we did the Galleries of Justice, and we were looking for the ghost of Robin Hood.
I was there. No.
Yeah, I have a picture of you in the dungeon, like standing next to this like mannequin of this woman getting like executed, and you're like.
Oh, also, I'd like to point out that not a lot of people know that our determinations of locations oftentimes were based on how cheap the tickets were, because we go on off seasons for everywhere.
Right.
So if it was miserably hot and that's when nobody go, we'll be there. And if it was miserably cold, like that's when we'll be there.
It was
perpetual winter.
Yeah. It was usually cold 9 out of 10 times, but then the opposite was disgustingly hot. That was pretty much it. It's just so ridiculous, but you know.
And it certainly raised the bar. I've got another silly story of like when we were in Argentina, and this is the kind of stuff that we just do. And there was the rare off day that we had, and the night before, all of us were in this like cement compound, and that was our rooms. I don't know what it was. It was like the most hippie compound vibe we'd ever had, because like there were no doors, like wild dogs were coming in and sleeping in there. remember Snapper made two friends, and we had drank all this great wine, and me and Barry Fitz, who was down, because Barry Fitz was almost always down, we wanted to get horses. And I saw this amazing leather gaucho hat. And I was like, I'm going to shave my face. Again, why I had to have a mustache, I don't know why. And I'm going to get that gaucho hat and I'm going to get a horse. And it's going to happen tomorrow morning, which at that time when I declared this was 4 hours from then. And they're like, you can't even walk upright right now. There's no way. And I remember I woke everybody else up. They were all like, everyone was passed out. And I rolled up with the horse, riding the horse and the hat. And I just looked down and I was like, soy gaucho. And then me and Barry Fitz rode horses that day.
Guess what, Micah Sampson?
Yeah.
I have pictures.
Yeah.
Oh, that existed. That happened. But I mean,
Yeah.
that's what's like, how do you get, and I know that's not rock star status. Like, it wasn't like, you know, yeah, I'm sure there could be crazier things, but like, who can just say that tomorrow I'm going to show up in my hotel room with a horse and a hat, and then I'm going to ride around town with all the kids chasing me, and then I'm going to go back to work tomorrow. Like, that's, yeah, you set the bar high.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna need to bring Eddie on camera. Is Eddie there?
Eddie.
We need to see Eddie before we wrap up.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right. Go get him.
Eddie, sit. Come here. You gotta be on TV. Come on, buddy. All right. Okay.
Oh,
There he is.
Look at him.
He is. This is what everybody wanted to see anyway. I don't know why.
I
We just
love
looked at it all.
Eddie.
Yeah. Just
Eddie and I spent some quality time together. I would take him for walks.
That's sweet. He looks like a good little boy.
He's a
See?
good.
Is he enjoying Texas?
Oh yeah, he loves it. He loves it out here. I mean, I haven't gotten too high yet. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eddie
Then he's
might
gonna-
need a haircut. He might need to cool down.
Yeah. Both of us do. Okay. Yeah. All of us need a shave, I'm sure.
You could do a time lapse. Do a time lapse of
Yeah, you and Eddie.
shape.
I think nothing says bachelor like that, does it? If it's just me and my dog going through various stages of there won't even be a question. They'll be like, that dude is way single. Wow. I bet he's staying at his parents' house.
All right, ladies. If you're interested in dating Micah, you can send me a message and I'll hook it up for you.
Yeah, that's a selling point. Me and my little white dog come visit you anytime. And you already told them I moved silently, so nothing sells people on that. They're like, oh, you can move quietly in a room. Fantastic.
Sure. Well, yeah, like I'm sure you probably don't need any more from me, but anytime you want to have me back on, it's really fun to kind of, oh, look, there's my dog in the back.
Oh, I see him. All right. Well, it was really great seeing you again, Micah. And thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I know it's been a long time since we all did GHI together, but I'm glad that you remember some things from your time with us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you guys. Truly. Like, it's fun. I miss you guys.
Oh,
Miss you
I
too,
miss
buddy.
you too. Okay. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.